My name is Ernesto Arniz. I'm the pastor at Flint City Church here in Flint, Michigan. And this is part of our video sermon series. It's a series of teachings we're doing that just to help our people and anyone that wants to watch this stuff and learn about God's view of money. This is about God and money. We've been doing this for a few weeks now. And today's lesson is about debt. About debt. Now, we live in America. Debt is a way of life for Americans, right? Debt makes the American economy go round. We take a 30-year mortgage on a house. We now are up to like 6-year loans on vehicles when we buy them. We go to Home Depot and get 12 months, same as cash. We move credit cards from one credit card to another to get 12 months, 0% financing. There's all these tricks we do. We have multiple debt streams. We owe money to family, to friends, to credit card companies. We owe money for, we can buy couches at Rent-A-Center and pay them weekly or monthly in order to have this couch. We live by debt. Now, if I make my payments, I feel as though that is a good thing. What does the Bible say anything about debt? Does the Bible say anything about debt? We'll just jump straight into it. Proverbs chapter 22 and verse 7. The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is slave of the lender. The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is slave of the lender. You know what the Bible says about debt? Debt is slavery. Debt is slavery. This is a lesson I learned all too well. When I first got married, I had no debt. I grew up under a lot of debt. I remember answering the phone and being told all the time by my parental figures, tell them we're not home, or don't answer the phone, or look at the caller ID to see who's calling us, and always being afraid of who was calling us. Would it be a debt collector or a bill collector? And they would use their persuasion. They would good cop, bad cop us. And I was afraid to answer my phone growing up. I'm like, I don't want to deal with that stuff. So I never, ever had debt. Didn't have a credit card. I'd literally take the train to Chicago with like $4 to $6 grand in my pocket, walk up to the treasury at my college and pay for my undergrad semester in cash. I just didn't do checks. I lived by cash. I get married, and my wife had lived in the world longer than I have, and she had some debt. I'm saying that she's bad or evil. I'm just saying she had debt. So we get married, and her debt becomes our debt, not because of, it's just how marriage is. We take, she got my baggage, I got her baggage. We're all together in this. So we're paying these minimum payments on these different credit cards, right? We had tuition payments for college. We had credit card payments for credit card outstanding balances. And this is back before. Nowadays, credit card statements have fun things saying, pay this much, you'll be paid off in this amount of time. This much interest you'll pay if you pay it. There's a lot of helpful information required by law in current credit card statements. It wasn't that way when I was 22 years old, 23 years old. I remember when I was writing the minimum payments for our credit cards. Here's one for Discover. Here's one for Capital One. Just right. Here's $40 for you and $80 for you. And here's money to Sally Mae for tuition. Just throwing the money out, right? And I sat down with Discover card, and I figured out, okay, I'm paying this much money. I'm paying $80. $60 is going to interest. Okay. That means $20 is going to the actual debt I own. $60 of my $80, I'm paying them for the joy of borrowing money. $60 every month was just a fee I was paying for being a lender, to being a borrower of them. So 20 went to the principal. So I'm like, man, if I pay this minimum every single week, how long will it take me to pay off this debt? And I did the math. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is going to take years and years and years. Then I thought, well, what if if I pay this minimum, how much will I have paid them in interest over the course of the loan? If it takes me 6 years to pay it off, how much interest they pull off me in that 6 years? I figured that out. And I sat there in front of my paper realizing these people own me. They have us. I remember it was like a burden, a weight, like, wow, these guys, we borrowed this money and now they have a right to what we make. And I felt like, man, we are underneath the burden of this debt. I felt the burden of slavery to my debt master. It was a terrible feeling. Debt is a form of slavery. You ever borrow money from a buddy? And whenever you see that buddy out on the street or at a family function, the first thing you feel like doing is saying, hey man, I forgot that money. I'll get it to you next week. I'll get it to you next month. I'll get it to you next paycheck. We feel the need to explain ourselves because when we borrow that money, we have changed the dynamic of our relationship. They are now the greater and we are the lesser. That it literally changes the power dynamic when we become the borrower and someone else is the lender. The Bible tells us clearly that debt is a form of slavery. The borrower is slave to the lender. I had a couple come in once. There was a family, a young couple. They borrowed a substantial money from their parents, okay, for a purpose, for a remodel of a kitchen, I think. And they owed monthly payments. They're paying monthly their parents back for borrowing this substantial amount. So let's say this couple wanted to go out to a nice dinner on a date night. They put it on Facebook, having, steak at Outback, yum, yum. The parents will make a comment a few days later saying, you went out to eat, you could have paid us a little more extra, paid it off faster. And these couple were like, Pastor, I feel like my parents are speaking into my life all the time, like they have a vested interest. Like who gives them the right to speak into my finances? And I'm like, you gave them the right when you borrowed the money. You invited them into your financial world when you borrowed that cashola. The borrower is slave, the lender. Debt is a form of slavery. Now, if that principle is true, and it is, and we've all felt it, one of the number one reasons given for the end the dissolution of marriages in America is finances. Divorce used to be the number one reasons for divorce in America was finances, and a big one was debt. Because when you are indebted up to your eyeballs, there was this great commercial back in the day of this guy in a nice house, nice neighborhood, nice car at the Singing Country Club. And he's like, how do we do it? I'm in debt up to my eyeballs. Please help. It was a hilarious commercial because people live this way. People live themselves fully leveraged out, making, literally, I know people that made $100,000 a year, 100 G's a year, and they're living hand to mouth, paycheck to paycheck, because 2 new cars with payments and full coverage. They bought a house that they barely could afford. They got a boat and they paid payments on that. Like everything has these payments coming out of you every single month, and you barely have to cover all these commitments you've made. The debt is owed. If debt is a form of slavery, the biblical wisdom is very simple. Don't go into debt. Don't go into debt. If you want to buy something, you save up the money and then you buy it when you have the resources already saved. Debt is leveraging future earnings for present pleasure, which is the opposite of the biblical view of pleasure. The biblical view of pleasure says essentially, you make the covenant and then enjoy the goodness. You put in the work and reap the benefit of your hard work. Where the American system says, enjoy the pleasure and then pay for it later. But that's why when recessions come, we're always caught with our pants down. I remember during the Great Recession of 2008, I was in charge of my church of delivering Christmas presents to those needy families in our church. And one day I was starting off the season, bringing presents to kids. I showed up in this really wealthy neighborhood. in Oakland County. I'm driving through these houses. They're all like beautiful mansions. Put this house on a lake. That house was beautiful. I'm like, what am I doing here? I walk in the house, and there's no furniture in the home. And the mom meets me, takes the presents, and I can tell she's a broken woman. Because this mom and dad were making, man, who knows, $400,000 a year? But they were leveraged out. They owed on everything. So when the money stopped coming, immediately they were underwater. Immediately. Because they were living at 100% of their income, when that income hiccuped at all, there was any hiccup at all, they were immediately in great danger. If you want to buy something, you put money aside, and when you have the money ready, then you buy it. A Christian principle, our Christian view of pleasure, we make the promise and then enjoy the pleasure. We do the hard work and reap the reward of that hard labor. I'm going to give a very strong example. The Christian view of sexual pleasure. The world we live in, the American view right now, the world view, the view of the world is enjoy all the pleasures of sex and pay and walk away from it. No commitment, no promise, no love, no nothing. Eat it all and walk away. And who cares what you do to the person you're leaving? The Christian view says, essentially, meet someone, love someone, pledge your life to them under the covenant of marriage, and then enjoy them and the blessings of a marital sexual relationship. First comes the promise, the commitment, and then comes the pleasure in that way. We save financially, applying the same principle to finances, you save and then buy. That way, let's say you save up and buy something, and let's say you lose your job. Let's say the country goes through recession. You're not paying a payment on that thing. You already own it outright. You have not leveraged your future earnings for present pleasure. When you buy something in cash and you own it, when you don't add debt to your life, if things shake tomorrow, you're doing okay because the things you have, you've already paid the cost for them. You don't owe someone. You're not in immediate danger. It is a good feeling. So if you I remember in my married life, I've been married 17 years, maybe 18 years. It's hard to know. I'm bad at math. My wife and I always had terrible refrigerators. I mean, we would always get fridges from people out of their like garages or their sheds. We've had some jank fridges my entire life. I mean, we'd have fridges, the light doesn't work. Couldn't fix it. We had fridges where the drawers, the big shelves where you put the milk and the stuff, they'd be broken. And so you had to put food on both corners so it wouldn't like flip over. I've had some jank ghetto fridges. And I always dreamed of someday having a nice fridge. A fridge where the light worked. I always wanted a fridge that had two doors open up and then a freezer that pulls out the bottom. That was my dream of a fridge. And I'd always get enticed for those 12-month same as cash offers at different appliance stores. And I never do it because I'm like, man, I just knew someday I'll save up and buy one, but I can't do that yet. We were married for 15 years before I had the money saved to buy the fridge I wanted. Now, I didn't buy super fridge. It's just a fridge that works. It's a nice fridge. I like our fridge. But I had the money, and I paid it in cash, the fridge at my house, so if anything happens tomorrow, that fridge is paid for. I'm not paying some weekly or some monthly payment on it. No one's coming to take it away. I'm not waiting for some phone call, Mr. Alaniz, you missed your payment this month. That phone call's not coming because I have not incurred any new debt for any new purchase. If you want something large, a computer, even a car, I'm not going to go too much into the car thing, but cars are one of the worst investments you can make as a purchaser. They depreciate so fast, it's almost impossible to gain value in a car purchase. The first few, my wife and I, we've always driven ghetto cars because I would buy a car for $100, then $500, then $1,000, and I'd save up. The last van I bought cost us $6,000. And when I bought it, I had been saving for 2.5 years, and I bought it in cash, which means I have no car payment. And that's a good feeling. Because again, if the world shakes, if I take a pay cut, if I gotta go work at a part-time job somewhere, we are not immediately underwater. The debt is not honest. We have learned through reading and studying God's word not to take on new debt. Listen, if you need something new, if you need something in the house, if you need, figure a way not to take on new debt. Because debt is slavery. Debt is stress. Debt is a burden. It's a burden. Now, here's the third point of this little lesson on debt. Debt is slavery. Don't take on debt. Don't take on debt. Now, I'm being very simple. I'm speaking to the lower class and the middle class. That's what I am. I don't know how to give counsel to the wealthy. That world's a different world. I don't understand, okay? I don't understand that world. For most of us I'm talking to, though, we are low to low middle to middle class, okay? And even upper middle class live this way terrible, indebted up to their eyeballs. We got to stop living this way. It is bad for us. It is stressful. It is dangerous. It's dangerous. It's painful. God's way is the best way. Even his financial counsel is true. His financial wisdom stands the test of time. But here's the big one for many of us. I've said debt is slavery. I've said to us, take no new debt. If you want something, you save up money to buy that thing. But here's the big one. If you already have debt, you want to get it off your back. You want to get that off your life. You want to be free from the burden of the debts of your past. When I got married, we had lots of debt on our life. My wife and I can't remember the number. Years pass, memory gets fuzzy. We owed anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 between college tuitions and credit card bills. $30,000 to $50,000. Let's go low. Let's say it was $30,000 we owed. My first ministry job, I made $8 an hour. $8 an hour. My wife got a job at a small Christian school. They paid her $9 an hour. That was our income when we first got married. 8 plus 9, $17 an hour. That's not a lot of money for a household. Lived in a small apartment. But we made a commitment, my wife and I. We decided, listen, we feel called that God's going to call us to mission field. We need to be debt-free so when God calls us, we're able to go. And so we didn't have internet in our apartment. We didn't go out to eat. We bought food and cooked it in our house. And you know what we did? We paid off debt. Every month, we just knocked debt down. We used the snowball method. I'm not going to go into that now, but you can find it online, or I can tell it to you later on in more detail if you want to email me or whatever. We knocked down one credit card, then another credit card, then another. And every time we knocked one credit card down, we'd pay more to the next one. All of a sudden, all the credit cards were gone. Discover was gone. Capital One was gone. Every time we got our tax refund back, we used our tax refund to just, boom, smoke that debt. And then we started going after our college debt. I mean, we're dropping like $300 a month, $400 a month, just like bam, bam, a 1-2 uppercut, bam, smoking that college debt. I remember the day I wrote the check for the last college debt payment. And it went out to the mail. You know what it meant? We were debt-free. Debt-free. And then when God called us to India a few years later, we were able to go to India because we owed no one in this world anything. Our debt was paid. When God called and God moved, we were able to uproot our family and travel across the world and serve God with no burden and no tether, and it was awesome. When we came to Flint, we were debt-free. We were able to take a 60% pay cut to come to Flint because we had no debt. It does mean less vacations. It does mean some things we don't buy we don't buy nice things all the time. That's okay. That's okay. This is a tough teaching on debt. I know for many of us, what do I do? Where do I start? And every one of our stories is so different. Maybe you have a car, you bought a car you can't afford already. You owe 5 more years on a car, and it's just eating your funds. Maybe you bought a house that's more than you could afford. Maybe you have credit cards, and there's so many of them, you just feel like I can barely make the minimums. I don't know what your story is. But if you are part of Flint City Church, I want to say to you first off, please, if you want to talk budgeting and debt, I have helped many of our church find a plan forward so they can go and begin to free that debt and create a budget that works for them and their family. We would love to help you. And again, I'm not doing this for money. I'm not some kind of accountant who gets paid to do this. I'm doing this because I want you to be free. We have work to do in the kingdom and for the Lord, and debt is a distraction. The stress of money shouldn't be the thing we worry about most. We have souls to save. Money shouldn't be the thing we worry about all the time. If I can serve you in this way, I would love to serve you in this way. So here's a question to consider as you think about this lesson. What are the debts you owe? How much do you currently owe debt-wise? Debts to family. I owe my mom 10 grand, 5 grand. Debts to credit card, unsecured debt, brutal debt. How much do I have for mortgage, for tuition? How much do I owe all over the place? How much debt do I currently have? Figure that out. The next question is, what is my plan for paying down this debt? What is my plan for paying down this debt? Is it a 3-year plan? Is it a 5-year plan? How much are you knock down in this next year? You need to have a plan to deal with this debt, to get free of it. Debt is slavery. Man, being free is so awesome. So that is our time about debt today. I hope this is a helpful thing. There's a lot of information here, a lot of ideas that we don't hear much about. I hope they're a helpful guide to you and give you stuff to think about as you go forward. If you have any questions, as always, please email me at Ernesto, don't say at, Ernesto at flintcitychurch.com. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to talk and share with you. God bless you. Have a wonderful, wonderful week.